I love the 2D Mario games, but I've never looked at them all in one go before, so in this video I'm going to be ranking every single game in the original 2D Super Mario series, starting off with the NES game here, Super Mario 1. And as we go through these games, I'm also going to be sharing some of my favourite memories, as well as some of my likes and dislikes for each game as well. So let's get started with the first one, the original Super Mario. And I actually grew up playing all three of the Mario games back to back. I actually had them all at the same time. So I didn't really play and experience Mario 1 before the other two, but I still really love it. And I can really appreciate the ingenuity that must have gone into creating something so groundbreaking for the time. It's a game I always enjoy going back to, and I really feel like they perfected the 2D platforming physics right from the very first entry. So I have to give the original Super Mario a very strong A rank. And I've actually got behind me a physical tier list on the table as well. So let's go and put the game on there. Now, of course, I'm sure you all know, there's actually two different versions of Mario 2. There was the version that we got here in the UK and over in America, and there's also the Lost Levels, which is actually the true sequel to Mario 2, which only came out in Japan, and I've only actually got the Game Boy Advance re-release of that game, but this is basically the true sequel to Super Mario Bros. So let's start with this one, which is kind of a weird sequel where it basically just upped the difficulty level and expected everyone to have played and completed the original game. And I had done, so when I actually got round to playing Super Mario 2, I really enjoyed it. In fact, I enjoy it slightly more than the original Super Mario, in fact. But because I'm going to save the S slot for a few more very special games a bit later on, I'm also going to be including Mario 2, aka the Lost Levels, in the A rank as well. Let me know down in the comments below whether you like this kind of sequel, which really ups the difficulty and expects you to have played the original game, or do you prefer a sequel like the next game here, which is Super Mario 2. Of course, I don't have to repeat myself like every single YouTuber on the platform, but there was another game in Japan, I'm not going to mention which one it was, that this game was kind of a reskin of. But even so, I still really love the game in its own right. I don't like it quite as much as Mario 1 or the real Mario 2, but I still have really fond memories of this game, and I especially love the different characters that you can play as, and there's some very memorable levels in this as well. But at the time, I never actually managed to complete it, and I do actually think that Super Mario 2 USA, I guess is the name that it goes by these days, is actually more difficult than the Lost Levels, so I'm going to give Super Mario 2 a B. Now, this is what I was saving the A rank for. This is, of course, Super Mario 3, and an absolute masterclass in game design. There really is no platformer, in my opinion, that's as accomplished in what it sets out to do as Super Mario 3. It really is the perfect game. If you've never played it before, please do yourself a favour and check out this absolute masterpiece of a game. It's unbelievable that this plays on the original Nintendo Entertainment System. It's just so big, it's so vast compared to any game that came before it. Every single level is incredibly unique. There's a great range of power-ups. The difficulty curve is just right, and objectively, it is my favourite Mario game of all time, and I honestly believe wholeheartedly that it deserves a spot in the S rank. Let me know in the comments whether you agree with that original Nintendo Entertainment System section. And now we're moving on to the SNES, the Super Nintendo, the SNES, whatever you want to call it, wherever you come from. And I've got 3 games here, well, maybe 6 games, I guess. But let's start with Super Mario World. I honestly don't feel like it was the massive step up that people were expecting from Super Mario 3, but I do think it equals that game in terms of quality, and I kind of always toss up between the two as to which one I think is the best. So I'm actually going to put Super Mario World in the S rank with Super Mario 3, so there is no fighting about which one is best. They're both going in the S rank, and that's where they're both going to stay. My nostalgia for this game runs so deep as well. Every time I look at this cover art here, it just fills me full of so much nostalgia. Just look how amazing that artwork is. I really love that. It's honestly my favourite Mario picture that Nintendo's ever made, and the game has some really memorable levels as well. I loved getting into Vanilla Dome as a child. Once I reached that point in the game, I really felt like my skills skills as a gamer had improved because I could never get past that bit as a kid. But then one day I managed to get past and go onto the cheese bridge and all the other worlds in the game, and it just opens up into this massive adventure with loads of different exits to the levels and loads of different secrets to discover. And because of that, it's got so much replay value as well. It is definitely one of the games that I just love revisiting over and over again. And then of course there's also Super Mario All-Stars, which took all of the original Super Mario games, including the Japan exclusive at the time Super Mario 2, and rebranded it as the Lost Levels. And this, more than all the original games, is the one that I go back to time and time again. They did a fantastic job improving all the graphics. And the original SNES or Super Nintendo system that I got was the pack-in that came with Super Mario All-Stars, and I love this box art as well. Just look at Mario as the magician there on the front, and the whole package is just absolute top quality, and I don't think Nintendo's beaten it since, honestly, in terms of a compilation. They tried with the Switch with the 3D All-Stars, but it really didn't give the same kind of vibes and the same kind of attention that this game did. It really is an incredible step up from the original games. They're all so much more colourful. I love the new 16-bit graphics. So of course this game is going straight into the S tier as well. And then it kind of goes as a given, but I did just want to include it as well. This is the Super Mario All-Stars and Super Mario World sort of collection of all the SNES games in one, which is obviously amazing. And if there was a double S tier, then this game would be on that tier, but as we've only got an S rank, this one's going in the S rank as well, obviously. Now, after the end of the Super Nintendo, there was a big gap in Nintendo's 2D Mario series, but there was a lot of handheld entries during that time as well, so let's start with the 3 Game Boy entries, and I'm not including Wario Land. I might save that for a separate list in the future if you're interested, but in this one we're just going through the original 2D Mario series. So let's start with the original Super Mario Land, and if you've been around on the channel for a while you'll know just how much I love this game, but this was probably one of the first games that I ever managed to get to the credits for. It's a very short game. I can actually finish the entire game in about 9 minutes, but that's just because I've played it so many times. It's probably the game that I've played more than anything else in any game that or series that I've played. Super Mario Land is, and this is a big, bold statement, Super Mario Land is my favourite Mario game of all time. But objectively, it isn't really as good as Mario 3 or Mario World, but in my personal opinion, I honestly believe that it deserves to be in the S rank. Among those other incredible games, there's just so much that this game does right. Considering it was a launch title for a brand new concept of a system, the Game Boy at the time, it's expertly programmed. I've never encountered any bugs in the 100+ times that I've actually completed the game at this point. Sure, the physics are a bit weird, but I personally really love them. It's definitely the fastest Mario game as well. Just there's something that feels so right about running through this game at full speed. I just love the way it controls, honestly, so it has to be an S rank for me, there is no doubt. And now moving on to Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins, which a lot of people prefer over the original Super Mario Land, but I actually prefer the first one. Obviously this one is so much bigger, it actually feels a lot more like Super Mario World with all the different areas on the map that you can go and explore. I love the fact that you can tackle any of them in any order, which is very uncommon for a Mario game. In fact, I can't think of another 2D Mario game that allows you the sort of flexibility that Mario Land 2 does. It also has some great original concepts like the space level with low gravity, the level where you're bouncing around in bubbles that the weird hippo statues burst out of their noses for some weird reason. There's a level that's entirely set in Lego, there's a Halloween theme, and of course it also introduced Wario and you get to go through his castle at the end of the game. And it is, by all accounts, a fantastic game, but there's just something about it that, in my mind, doesn't make it as replayable as the original. Maybe it's because it's so much bigger, it's kind of a struggle to play it all in one go, and I really enjoy, on a handheld, being able to sit down and just play through the entire game. So I'm going to give Super Mario Land 2 an A rank, but let me know what you guys think in the comments. And now, for the Game Boy Color's launch title, this is Mario Bros. Deluxe, and this is a colour update of the original Nintendo Entertainment System game. It includes a few interesting new features like a map screen, which I really enjoy, and also compatibility with the Game Boy printer, which is really fun. But the game does unfortunately suffer in a big way, which wasn't really present on the other two Game Boy games because they were made specifically for the system, whereas this game uses the same sprites as the original Nintendo game, which of course means shrinking the screen down, so the camera actually moves quite a lot in this, which is kind of off-putting, and it means that I can't run through the levels in the same speed that I could on the original because of that shrunk down perspective. So I'm actually going to give Super Mario Deluxe a C. This is my first C on the tier list. Let me know whether you agree or disagree with this. I know a lot of people really like the deluxe version. I wonder whether anyone actually prefers it over the original. There are a few interesting features, and I do like the multiplayer edition, and I like collecting the red coins, but honestly, the gameplay really lets it down for me, so it is a C. And then the Game Boy Advance came out, and along with it came a slew of Mario ports and remakes for the system, starting off with Super Mario Advance plus Super Mario Bros. Original. So at the time, I thought this was fantastic, but these days, there really isn't any reason to revisit this version of the game over the SNES or NES originals. There are a few interesting quirks to this version of the game. I wouldn't really call them improvements, but there's definitely some interesting things like the sprite scaling, which you didn't get on the originals, and also the voice samples as well, which was quite novel for the time, but these days it can get a little bit grating. You can check them all out on the Switch Online for the Game Boy Advance on there. I think, at least, they're all on there at this point. But yeah, there's really no reason to go back to play any of these advanced versions of the game, but I have very fond memories of playing this one when it first came out, so I'm going to put this in the same tier as the original Mario 2, so that goes in the B rank. And now moving on to Super Mario Advance 2, which is a remake of Super Mario World. Again, there's a few nice enhancements, but overall, the game isn't really as good as the SNES game, and unlike Mario Advance 2, which I didn't really notice it that much, I do notice the screen crunch on this one. Maybe it's because Super Mario World is a faster paced style of game compared to Super Mario 2, which means that the shrunk down camera perspective kind of hinders the gameplay a little bit more. So I'm actually going to put Super Mario Advance 2, and yes, I don't have an English copy of the box, so I'm holding the Japanese one here. I need to rectify that at some point. I'm actually going to put this one in the C rank because there is absolutely no way that I would go back to revisit this version of the game over any of the others. So Super Mario Advance 2, Super Mario World gets a C from me. Super Mario Advance 3 next, which is actually Yoshi's Island, which was Super Mario World 2, and I guess I should include the original Yoshi's Island if I'm including Super Mario Advance Yoshi's Island. And this is actually a fantastic GBA port of the SNES game. And kind of like Mario 2 compared to Super Mario World, it's a slower paced game, so the different perspective on the GBA screen is not really an issue. So I actually really like this version of the game, and it is the version that I played more than the original, in fact. So I'm putting Super Mario Advance 3, Yoshi's Island, in the A rank, and I will also go and do the same with the SNES game too. I'm making this up on the fly, but I guess if we're including Yoshi's Island because it has the title Super Mario in it, I guess we should also be including the first Wario Land game as well. So I'm going to add that one to the tier list too. Yoshi's Island is an incredible game, and it's one I have very fond memories of. So I'm going to put this in the A rank. Right, let's add this one to the list as well. This is Super Mario Land 3, also known as Wario Land, which obviously carried on the brand new character from Super Mario Land 2, and I absolutely loved this game as a kid. And again, I think it works perfectly well on the original Game Boy. Of course, this was designed specifically for the screen on the Game Boy, and it's a very different kind of game. It's all about treasure hunting and puzzle solving and slower paced sort of combat in a way as well. It's really interesting, so I'm actually going to give it a B rank, I think. It's not quite as good as Super Mario Land 2, in my opinion, because of the slower pace, and I prefer faster paced games. But I think a B is a good score for this game. Let me know what you think about the original Wario Land down below as well. And finally, I don't have a box for this one, but this is Super Mario Advance 4 Super Mario Bros. 3. Quite possibly the stupidest game title in existence. And again, like Super Mario World, this is not the version of Mario 3 that I would ever consider going back and replaying. So I'm going to give this one the same as the Super Mario World Game Boy Advance rendition, which is a C rank. Admittedly, there are some interesting features, especially if you play this on the Wii U, because here in the UK we didn't get the e-reader attachment for the Game Boy Advance, but over in America you could actually buy specific Super Mario Advance 4 cards to unlock special brand new levels just for this game. I never actually got the chance to experience them firsthand, but maybe if you did, maybe that would push it up to a B because of the more original features specific to this version of the game. But as it stands, it's not really that different to the one that's included on Super Mario All-Stars, apart from the less screen real estate that you get on this, so I think a C rank is reasonable. Now we're moving on to the DS, and finally a brand new original 2D Mario game in the form of New Super Mario Bros. I was very excited for this game before it was launched, as I'm sure a lot of you watching were as well. Unfortunately, barely anything they showed off that original trailer actually made it into the final game, but even so, I enjoyed the game for what it was, but going back to re-experience it today is kind of a painful experience, honestly. It's a very slow-paced Super Mario game. It relies a lot more heavily on puzzles and sort of floaty 2.5D physics, which I'm not a huge fan of, and I also didn't really like the fact that you have to go back and re-experience some levels over and over again because of these new coins that they introduced. And if you want to get 100%, you have to go back through the levels and collect all of these different collectibles. And what I really enjoyed about the older 2D Mario games was just the ability to play through the game level after level and not really have to worry about slowing down and exploring the levels. And that is kind of a feature that Nintendo took from this game and brought forward to all future 2D Mario games, which is kind of a shame in my opinion. I feel like they're kind of scared of just having level by level progression, and they want you to go back and re-experience the levels and slow down just to pad the games out, and it's not really my favourite thing, so I'm not a huge fan of the original New Super Mario Bros, so I'm going to give this one a C. Now let's move forward to another New Super Mario Bros. Game, but this is one that I actually really enjoy because it actually went back to a much faster pace, and I feel like the level design in the game was much improved too. This is New Super Mario Bros. 2 for the 3DS, and I love this game. Honestly, this is my favourite game in the New Super Mario Bros. Series, and I actually think this rivals some of the originals. I played this game so much that I actually maxed out the coin counter in the game, and I also loved all of the Street Pass features as well. It came out just at the perfect time for me when I was at uni and I had a group of friends that were also playing this. So surprisingly, and this one might come as a surprise to a lot of you, I'm actually putting New Super Mario Bros. 2 in the A rank. And let's finish off the handheld Mario games here by taking a look at Super Mario Maker for the 3DS as well. This one was kind of a disappointment due to the lack of proper online features, so you couldn't really share your levels with anyone unless you happened to already be friends with them or go through Street Pass or Spot Pass, I think. So it was a really weird way of doing it, and they locked it down for no particular reason. The game itself is pretty good though, and it has some original levels, and of course it works really well on the 3DS using the touchscreen to make the levels, but really there was no reason to play this over the Wii U game, so I'm going to give this one a C as well. Now moving over to the Wii, and let's start this off with kind of a joke release from Nintendo, if I'm completely honest. This was released to coincide with Super Mario's 25th anniversary, and they did the most lazy thing imaginable and just put a SNES ROM on a Wii disc. This is Super Mario All-Stars again, but on the Wii this time. And that is literally it. There's an image going around somewhere that shows just how much disc space is actually used on this. And you can probably tell from the actual disc itself. I don't know whether you can see that on here. You probably can't see it through the reflections, but no, it's not going to focus. There's the tier list in the disc itself. It actually barely takes up like one ring on the CD, which is so funny. And this is actually even worse than the original SNES games, because the original game was actually sped up for PAL systems, and then of course I actually had a modded Super Nintendo as well, so I could play it in 60Hz anyway. But this only runs in 50Hz on a PAL Wii in the year 2010, which is just mind-blowing to me. So this is the worst way of playing the classic games, and this instantly gets a D rank from me. I don't know what Nintendo was thinking. I picked this up on day one, and it just felt like a joke, honestly. I don't get it. They didn't put any effort into this whatsoever. So D rank, hate this game, never want to speak of it ever again. And the next Mario game on the Wii was New Super Mario Bros. Wii, and I enjoy this for what it is. I enjoy it a lot more than the DS game. I also really enjoy the multiplayer aspect, although that heavily depends on who you're actually playing it with. I really enjoyed going through and 100% completing it with my girlfriend. Having someone else to play the game with me helped me slow down a little bit, because I do play all these Mario games with a kind of speedrunner's mentality, so having someone to methodically play through all the stages and track down all of the secret coins made this a lot more enjoyable, and it was kind of a shared experience for me. But it's not really a game that I would choose to go back and revisit over some of the other ones, so I'm going to give New Super Mario Bros. For the Wii a B rank. And now moving on to the Wii U, and a launch game for the Wii U. This was New Super Mario Bros. U, which I think personally improved upon all of the other New Super Mario Bros. Games that had come before it. I love the new squirrel suit, I love the design of the game as well. The levels were really bright and colourful. I love the Starry Night level. I love the world map. They really improved the world map over all the other previous ones too. And honestly, I think this was a perfect launch game for the Wii U as well. It's not quite up there with Mario 3 and Mario World, but this is easily an A rank for me. I have great memories of playing this game when it first came out. And then there was the follow-up, which was Luigi U, to coincide with the year of Luigi, which was a great time in Nintendo's history. Definitely go back and check out some of that if you're not familiar about what that is. But this game was fantastic. This is a proper sequel that I enjoy, just like Super Mario 2 or The Lost Levels. This one takes everything that was great about the first game and just ups the difficulty, ups the challenge, and gives you a brand new set of levels to experience. I actually enjoyed this just as much, if not slightly more, than Super Mario U, so this one is definitely going in the A rank tier as well for me. And one more game for the Wii U, and one of my favourite games that Nintendo has ever made, honestly. This is Super Mario Maker, and one of my favourite memories about this game is that just after launch, Nintendo actually asked me whether I wanted to demo this game in my local game store, so of course I jumped at the opportunity, and I actually got to spend 2 whole days demoing this game on a Wii U kiosk, and showing all of the kids and families that came into the store how much fun they could have with Super Mario Maker. I really loved that, and the game itself was fantastic. I spent so many hours building really intricate and detailed levels and playing everyone's stages online, so honestly, in my opinion, Super Mario Maker deserves an S rank among the best of the best that Nintendo's ever made. It really came out of left field, and it really does just fill me with so much joy and nostalgia. Just looking at this cover as well, it was such an exciting time for me as a Nintendo fan to finally be able to experience brand new levels in all of my favourite classic styles. And we are down to the final 3 games. Let's start off with Mario Maker 2, which was kind of a sequel to the original Mario Maker, but also kind of a port with a few little extra things. I didn't enjoy it as much as the Wii U one because I really enjoyed using the Wii U tablet to make the levels and then play them on the TV straight away, whereas you don't really have that luxury with the Switch because of course you can take it out of the dock, but then you'd have to go back up to the TV and put it back in the dock again, and it's not really as intuitive as it is on the Wii U, and also I don't really like using the buttons to create the levels as well. So while there is more content on this one, and it probably got a lot more support because it was just on a more popular system, I actually preferred the first Mario Maker over the second one, so I'm going to give this one an A rank. And now for another port. This is New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, which is kind of an enhanced port of the Wii U game. Well, kind of enhanced, but it's also missing a few features because it doesn't really have the same sort of 5-player mode where you could put the blocks down like the Wii U one did. And I didn't really play that much of this one, and I also feel like they kind of tweaked the physics very slightly, which kind of puts me off a little bit when I'm playing this. And it doesn't really have the same sort of appeal that it had on the Switch as it did on the Wii U. So although despite it being the definitive version of Super Mario U, I don't really hold it in as high of regard as I do with the Wii U game. It's obviously, and it does kind of just feel like a little cash grab from Nintendo. So I'm actually going to put this one in the B tier, on the same tier as the Wii game. And the final game, and the latest game in the 2D Mario series, and I really enjoyed this. This is Super Mario Wonder. Of course it shares a lot of the DNA with the new Super Mario series, but it also has an identity all of its own. And I really enjoyed it, but there was also a few things that I really didn't like about it. The levels seem incredibly short, even more so than regular Mario levels, and I really don't like the world map anywhere near as much as Super Mario U. So I'm actually going to give this one an A rank. I know some people might be a little bit surprised at that and think it deserves an S, but Maybe that's just recency bias talking, so we'll see again what people's opinions are of this game in a few years' time, but I think it deserves an A, honestly. It's not quite up there with Mario World and Mario 3, but it's definitely one of the best 2D Mario games that Nintendo's made in a long time, and I really can't wait to see where they take the series from here. So wow, that was a lot to get through, and I actually really enjoyed making this. Let me know if you'd like to see more tier list videos in the future. This is the first one that I've ever done on the channel, actually. And of course, let me know what you thought of my list and what your favourite Mario games are too. For the 2D ones anyway, I'll be doing a follow-up soon with my favourite 3D Mario games. And because I've never made a tier list video before, I don't really have anywhere to send you, so just click on whatever video YouTube recommends, and I'll see you all again very soon. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.